He learned early that the world listens only when you stop asking for permission, but no one had bothered to tell him that yet. In the beginning, he was invisible, the kind of person people spoke over, walked past, forgot. He woke before sunrise not because he was disciplined, but because anxiety refused to let him sleep. Every morning felt like a reminder of everything he hadn't become. He watched others live loudly while he existed quietly, shrinking himself so he wouldn't be a burden. He chased approval like oxygen, nodding, agreeing, apologizing even when he hadn't done anything wrong. Somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered that this wasn't life, this was survival, but he ignored it because hope hurt too much. Failure had trained him to keep expectations low. He had dreams once, big ones, but they'd been laughed at, dismissed, crushed by people who mistook their fear for wisdom. Be realistic, they told him, and he believed them. He learned to beg without words, begging for attention, begging for validation, begging for a chance, and the world gave him scraps. But pain has a strange way of sharpening awareness. One night, sitting alone with nothing but his thoughts and the sound of his own breathing, something cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet realization that shook him deeper than rage ever could. No one was coming. No apology would arrive. No rescue was scheduled. This was it. This was his life unless he chose differently. And in that moment, for the first time, he felt something more dangerous than fear, clarity. He saw how much energy he'd wasted trying to be chosen instead of choosing himself. How he'd lowered his voice so others could stay comfortable. That night didn't turn him into a hero. It turned him into someone awake. If this story is already hitting something inside you, don't walk away, subscribe to the channel, because what comes next is where everything changes. The next morning didn't feel magical. Nothing about the world had changed. But he had. He stopped explaining himself, stopped oversharing, stopped asking people what they thought before trusting his own judgment. It was uncomfortable at first, like wearing a new skin that hadn't settled yet. People noticed. Some were confused. Others were threatened. When you stop begging, it exposes who benefited from your silence. He began to move differently, less talk, more action. He worked when no one was watching and learned when no one was clapping. Progress was slow, painfully slow, but it was honest. He failed again, more than once, but failure no longer felt personal. It felt instructional. Each mistake sharpened him instead of shaming him. He replaced excuses with systems, motivation with discipline. There were days he wanted to quit. Days when the old voice told him to go back to being small because it was safer there. But safety had cost him everything. So he kept going. He read books that challenged him, listened to voices that demanded more from him, and cut off the noise that fed his doubts. Loneliness followed, but so did focus. While others chased comfort, he chased competence. Slowly, opportunities began to appear, not because the world became kind, but because he became capable. He no longer needed permission to enter rooms. He belonged there because he'd earned it, and the most dangerous part, he started believing it. Confidence replaced desperation. Silence replaced complaining. People who once ignored him began asking questions. He didn't brag. He didn't explain. He just kept building. This is the phase most people quit, the quiet grind, the invisible progress. If you're still watching, you're not like most people. Subscribe now, because this chapter is where discipline is born. Success didn't arrive with fireworks. It crept in quietly, almost shyly, testing whether he'd sabotage it the way he used to. But he didn't. He'd grown. He handled pressure without panic, criticism without collapse. He learned that power isn't loud, it's calm. The more grounded he became, the less he needed approval. People felt it. Conversations shifted. Respect replaced pity. He spoke less, but when he did, people listened. He set boundaries and enforced them, even when it cost him relationships. Especially then, the hardest lesson was realizing not everyone deserved access to the new version of him. Some only loved the old him because he was easier to control. He let them go. The work paid off. Doors opened. Goals became reality. Not overnight, not easily, but undeniably. He wasn't lucky. He was prepared. And when setbacks came, because they always do, he didn't crumble. He adjusted. He adapted. He moved forward. He became the person he once searched for. And the strangest part, the hunger didn't disappear. It matured. It stopped screaming and started guiding. He understood now that the real victory wasn't money, status, or applause. It was self-respect. The kind no one can give you and no one can take away. If this chapter resonates, it's because you're closer than you think. Stay with this journey. Subscribe because the final chapter is where everything clicks. Now, when he looks back, he doesn't hate the version of himself that begged. He understands him. That version survived, so this one could rise. He knows the truth most people never learn. You don't become powerful by being chosen. You become powerful by choosing yourself every single day. He walks with certainty now, not arrogance, not ego, but grounded confidence. He knows who he is, what he can endure, and what he will never tolerate again. The world still isn't fair, but it doesn't scare him anymore. He no longer waits for motivation. He creates momentum. He no longer seeks validation. He builds value, and when others ask how he changed his life, he tells them the truth. It started the day he stopped begging. If you see yourself in this story, remember this. Your turning point won't announce itself. It will feel quiet, uncomfortable, and lonely, but it will be real, and real change compounds. This channel exists for people standing at that edge, deciding whether to stay small or step forward. If you're ready to step forward, don't just watch, subscribe. Because this story isn't just his, it's yours too.